October 11th, 1858. Dear Diary, as another day passes, I continue to ponder on this question of slavery. How did it come to be? I ask my father, and he just tells me this is the way we have always lived. But why? As I ponder this, I have also come to think of slavery as, no. I mustn't think this. Father said it isn't fit for a planter's son to question the subject of slavery. Although I see how they live and are punished and start to think something isn't right, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking too much. Besides, without slavery, how would my family make a living? And like my father says, there are three good things in this world: the Lord, family, and slavery. There are two main periods to American slavery: the colonial period and the antebellum period. In the late 1600s, African slaves were sent to the New World to help end labor shortages. One of the biggest changes in the colonial period was the slaves' change from African to African American. Some of the few surviving African culture elements are folk medicine, charms, and love potion. As time continued, more and more slaves became non-Africans. African traditions affected by the new African American culture include breastfeeding, running away, naming children, and dancing. Slavery was characterized by the prevalence of small to medium-sized plantations. Relatively few slaves experienced life on very large plantations. Most slaves were held in smaller groups. Slave owners were reluctant to introduce their slaves to Christianity because of the early fear that slaves converted to Christianity would have to be freed. They also feared that the Christian message of the equality of all souls before God would produce unrest. It wouldn't be until the Great Awakening of the 1730s and 40s and the evangelical revivals in the late 1700s that there would be new interests among whites to convert slaves to Christianity. Slave punishments were the most inhumane in the early years of the colonial period. New slaves had to be broken in, which was a routine application of the lash. The most severe punishments included branding, nose slitting, amputation of ears, toes, and fingers, castration, and burning at the stake. Towards the end of the colonial period, many slave owners began to talk about how they cared for their slaves. They began calling slaves their people. But it is important to understand that this change in attitude did not end slavery's cruelty. The establishment of a family had become an important yet fragile buffer, shielding slaves from the worst of slavery. A family served as a great source of joy as it brought love, laughter, and joyous singing. Many children didn't have to work until they became 7 or 8 years old, but this did not protect them from acknowledgement of their bondage, as they learned at an early age that they must be obedient to their parents and their masters. Christianity became a very important part of a slave's life. Christianity gave a promise that they would one day be delivered from their earthly troubles, and it gave them hope. Slaves commonly fused Christianity with non-Christian elements, such as superstition. Rebellions, such as the Turner Insurrection of 1831, served as a source of inspiration for slaves throughout the antebellum period. Many slaves participated in rebellious activities, such as day-to-day resistance or attempting to escape using the Underground Railroad. But most slaves came to terms with their conditions because they had little choice.
I'm Sam Barry, and I approve this message. Slavery did exist.
Heck yeah!